Place, Puppin's Place, the only show in town that puts a smile on your face. We've got songs, we've got games, we've got many things to do. The only thing we need is a visit from you. Oh, Puppin's Place, Puppin's Place. So whether it is winter, spring, or fall, when you've got nothing to do, you're always welcome to come and visit Puppin's Place.
Hello, hello.
Hey, Tim, how are you?
I'm doing just fine.
It's been a long, long time since I've actually seen. I don't even know the last time. Maybe it was at K-Mag. I don't remember how long ago it was.
I don't know. I've turned awful gray in the last little while.
Or what are you doing these days?
What am I doing these days? I'm kind of a freelancer doing all kinds of stuff. I do the marketing for long lines, for the cable internet and their phones. I also do a lot of producing of videos for Sunnybrook Church here, big church now, and I do a lot of videos for a lot of churches all across the country.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I may have ran into you. It might have been like 12 or 13 years ago. I think I was working at an Indian Hills, that VCR repair shop. I think that might have been
sure.
The last place I might have talked to you, and you were talking about going down to Haiti and doing shows.
Yes, still wearing a Haiti shot there at the moment.
Oh, cool. Everybody, I mean, at least in Sioux City and Siouxland area, everybody knows you the most for your children's show, Puppin's Place. That's at least what I grew up on, and so many of my friends. Outside of Puppin's Place, what were your early beginnings in broadcasting in Sioux City?
Well, actually, Puppin's Place was the first broadcasting that I actually did.
Really?
I went to Northwestern College to be a music major, and I was going to be a band director. But I started playing with puppets and got a group of guys together, and we were just doing puppets literally all around the Midwest in churches and schools and stuff, just kind of touring. And started in 1978 on Jim Henry's Canyon Kids Corner. He was on the weekends, and we would show up and just record a whole bunch of like 3 to 5 minute little segments, and he'd plug them in whenever he needed them. And then I started doing some of that for Bingo's Big Top, which was Dave Madsen here in Sioux City. Mm-hmm. And when Dave resigned to go away from K-Mag, I was standing in the studio. We had just done a taping for his show, and they asked if I'd be interested in doing it. And I said, sure, why not? So that's how we started.
So Puppin's Place was indirectly a spin-off? Not necessarily a spin-off, but it was a result of Bingo's Big Top?
Yeah, it was actually a result of me just kind of being in the right place at the right time. Because we were called Poppins, touring around, like I said, to churches and schools. Any place we could get on a weekend, we'd go. And so we do those guest shots pretty much I was still doing Canyon Kid at the same time as doing Bingo, because we were just guests showing up. But being in the right place at the right time.
Was the Canyon Kid, Jim Henry, was he one of the people that were a mentor to you, or did you have other people that you were kind of trying to emulate as you went into the children's television business?
Well, at that particular time, that was when Jim Henson was really going. And, of course, all the Sesame Street stuff, that was really big back then, because that's, late 70s. And so that's kind of who I was watching more than anything else. The guys that were here, Jim Henry and Dave Madsen and stuff, were just very helpful in, getting me on the air and getting exposure and going from there.
Okay. I vaguely remember the shows from, I think, what year did you start?
We started Puppin's Place in 1979.
Okay.
And we finished that one in 1988.
Okay. So around the time you were getting started, as from my personal experience, I was only a few years old, but as the years went on, it seemed like popularity increased, and you were doing shows in the band shell. Was that an annual event that you did? I remember everybody looked forward to that.
Yes, that was our promotion manager had that great idea of putting us in the band shell and just taping the shows there. And we weren't sure because, when you tape a show, it's very strange because everything we do is in front of two cameramen, a floor person, a couple of, an audio person, an engineer, and a director. So we actually have no idea whether anybody's really watching or not. We're just doing a show in a studio.
Yeah.
So when they decided to do it live out at the band shell, we were a little concerned. Is anybody really going to come out to this thing? And all of us had other jobs at the station. So the very first time we did it, we set up early in the morning. We went out, tested all our mics, tested everything, so we were all ready to go. Then we all had to run back to the studio to do the live noon show and work on that. And then we had to turn around and go back and actually do the show in Grandview Park. And when we left Grandview Park, obviously there was nobody there. When we started getting near the park the first time, we couldn't drive anywhere near it.
Really?
There was so much congestion there and everything else. And when we got there, the park was just absolutely packed.
Wow.
And we were just totally blown away by that. We couldn't believe that everybody would come out. But they came out to do picnics. At the band shell, they've got that big grassy area right out in front of the band shell.
Yeah.
And we were hoping we could get enough kids to fill that so we could, shoot it tight with cameras and make it look like there was a lot of kids. But we never had to do that. They were just all over the place.
That's awesome. Now, was that from the very first year?
We did it in the summer of, pretty much. We started in September of 79, and we did the first band shell one in the summer of 1980.
Okay. And you said the actual... Hold on one sec. I just dropped you. Hold on.
It's okay.
I've got
It didn't hurt at all.
I've got a bunch of cables connected that are not long enough. Okay.
Trust me, I know.
What was I? Oh, okay. What I was asking, you went to 1988, you said, with the show?
Right.
And was there a reason for the eventual end of the show? Were you tired, or was it just was it losing steam or popularity, or what happened there?
Well, actually what happened, I got to step back a little bit and give you a little boring history. When I started the television show, I was actually working for the newspaper in Orange City, Iowa. Mm-hmm. And so my partner and I would come down on Monday nights, and we would take 5 shows in one night and get the whole week done at one time. So we'd come down once a week. And did that for the first 4 months, and then the station decided to hire me full-time. And they really didn't have a job for me. They just thought it'd be worth having me for promotional stuff, their on-air talent. And so literally I started learning everything at the TV station starting in 1980. I would go from department to department and learn everything they had to do so I could fill in for anybody who was on vacation no matter where they were.
So you, before that, you didn't have a broadcasting background. You just fell into it?
Yep, just fell into it. I was my background was music and theater, and I got in just with the puppets and just by doing, being on site and learning hands-on. That's kind of how I learned everything. But I did that at the station just for 3 years, 4 years, 80 to 83, and then an advertising agency came and recruited me and wanted me to come and be their writer-producer. So I started working for a group called RCG Advertising Associates. So I left KMEG full-time to work for those guys, and then would come in again on Monday nights, and we would tape 5 shows at one time. And the station was fine with that. And then I was still doing shows. But my full-time job was actually as a creative director for an advertising agency.
Okay.
The reason I tell you all this is in 1987, our advertising agency entered the Addy Awards, and there were 58 awards given out that year, and we took 47 of them.
Wow.
And I was the creative director on all that. So a Des Moines agency saw that and came after me and asked me to be the creative director down in Des Moines. So my job was taking me away from Sioux City, and so that was the end of the show. It wasn't that station wasn't tired of it. We weren't tired of it. Everything was good, but my job was taking me away.
Wow, interesting. When you said you were doing the shows live originally. Is that?
No, we were always taped, just because we were not there at all. We weren't in Sioux City. I was living in Orange City at the time, and even when we came down here, my partner, his name is Dale Landigent. He was the actual Rufus on the show.
Uh-huh.
He lived in Sioux Center and was a teacher at the Sioux Center Elementary School.
Okay.
And so that's why we would come down once a week and just tape 5 shows in a row.
And how long did it take you to run through that many shows in one day?
Well, you also have to remember, we only had to tape our portion of it. So out of a half-hour show, when you'd run cartoons, Bugs Bunny and all that stuff, we would actually be responsible for probably about maybe 17 minutes for each half hour.
Okay.
So we would divide that up, and so we could get through it in 2.5 hours pretty easily.
Okay. So when you were talking about live, you were talking about just in the park when you would do that part of it.
That was live in the park because we just did the we would tape our 5 shows. That was like our taping for the week.
Uh-huh. Did any interesting mishaps happen on any of those live events?
Well, it's kind of everything was a mishap. Puppin's Place was it was basically an ad-libbed show. We never were quite sure where it was going. When we would plan a show, Dale and I would sit down and just kind of talk through it and say, we want to get from, here to here, and that's in our first segment. Then we got to get to the next part, and you have to get through this section in part 2, and then we'd end up with part 3. So then it was just like, on your marks, get set, go. We used to have classes from Morningside College and Briar Cliff, the theater departments would come down and watch us because it's really like improv theater. It was just like become the character and away you go. We'd plan out what the moral of the story was and kind of do an outline, but what the direct lines were, that was just 100% ad-libbed all the way.
So you always had some moral of the story built into it?
Right. Normally what we'd do is I would take 3 days and Dale would take 2 days and sort of be responsible for that, and then when we'd sit down we would talk about what we wanted to get through with it. And we always tried to be a little bit on the teach something decent, have some sort of moral of the story behind it, because we wanted it to be something special for kids, not just plain babysitting entertainment stuff. And I think that's why parents liked us all the time too. They felt good about leaving the kids there. They knew it was going to be fun, clean entertainment, and the kids would learn something.
Yeah, and it was obviously long-lasting memory because there's so many people, myself included, that have fond memories of the show. What was the rundown of characters? Who were the main? I remember Rufus, but some of the other names escape me now.
Well, see, we had to do everything with 2 of us, so it was like when I was the human character, we had to have the counterpart, so that was Rufus.
Uh-huh.
So Tim, Rufus. Then we would have the twins, which were Ed and Fred. Well, of course, Dale was Ed and I was Fred. And we had the Igor and the Wiz. And I was the evil Igor and Dale was the Wiz. And we had Gertrude, who was the lady puppet thing on there, and her counterpart was this other Sven, who was our one strange character. And that's kind of the main group.
So you would never see Rufus with one of those other characters. It was always kind of with you, the human.
It would be Rufus with Fred because I was Fred. So he could be paired up with any of my characters. And later on in the show, Dale came on as a live person. He came on and took the name of Mr. Romanov, named after the last Tsar of Russia. And he would do stories and stuff with the kids, and then it would be Dale and Fred or Dale and Gertrude, just so as long as one of the puppets that I ran.
Okay. Who designed all the puppets?
I did. Normally I would make the puppets and sew them because they would fit my hand right. My wife was usually responsible for putting the eyes and everything on because I always got them cross-eyed. And so she would take care of doing that, but we built all the puppets.
Oh, interesting. There's so much I didn't know.
So here's your camera rolling. I just thought you might like to see him.
Is that Rufus?
It's Rufus. He's still alive and well.
Oh, you may have to send me a still shot of this so I can put it on my the video.
Sure. Well, there's also my on my Facebook page. There's a whole bunch of pictures of the me with the cast from back then.
Oh yeah, maybe I'll just pull some of them down then.
Yeah.
I had another question. So doing the improv thing, you had to have your timing down fairly close in order to know when you were going to fill that 17 minutes or whatever you needed to fill. Did that get better with time, or were you pretty good with right away?
Well, it got better with time, but normally we would try and do the first segment. We'd always do was kind of just an introduction. So typical, you get an idea of what's happening today, type thing, and then we'd try and cut it off right away. Well, the producer is there timing it, and he would say, okay, for that first segment you took 2 minutes and 15 seconds. They would calculate the rest of it and say, now you have 13 minutes and 14 seconds left for the show. So then we'd get into the middle section, and we'd try and get through the meat of everything we wanted to say. And once that was done, they would retime it again and say, okay, you've got 1 minute and 30 seconds for the close. And that was always our summary and moral to the story type thing.
Ah, okay.
There was cue cards all the time. They'd start showing us cue cards at 5 minutes left and 4 minutes left and everything. So we had a good idea. If we weren't getting towards the end of what we needed, we could see what our timing was.
Uh-huh. And this was all done at the old station on Floyd Boulevard?
That was all done there at 7th and Floyd, down in the basement.
Ah. And I actually ended up in high school. I did a short stint of interning there. And by that time, you were already doing, you must have come back because you were doing the K-Meg Kids Club.
Right. I had gone to Des Moines for a year, and while I was gone, the agency that I was working for up here had an opportunity to get Wells Blue Bunny as their big client, and they wanted me to come back and work on that. So they came down and talked to me in Des Moines, and they said, we really want you back. And I said, how badly do you want me back? And it was bad enough, so I turned around after a year and came back. And so I was writing Wells Blue Bunny stuff for this agency and producing their spots. And then it was a year later, it'd be 1990, that K-Meg had been doing a K-Meg Kids Club just with an announcer saying, hey kids, this is it. And there wasn't anybody on camera, it was just the voice.
Yeah.
And they really wanted to expand that, so they called me and asked me if I'd be interested in coming back and doing that show. And I said sure. And then they said, well, the one hitch is you have to audition for it, because they were new owners, and the owners wanted to make sure that kids would like that and everything. So I showed up with everybody else and did my 2-minute audition, and they showed it to all the kids, and the kids all unanimously picked me. So I must have done something right.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you were more or less, you were doing introductions, intros, and outros to a lot of shows?
That was the Kids Club. That's all it really was. It was a 2-hour time block in the afternoon, and I would show up every half hour and give them information about stuff that was happening. We'd do a few small things, but it was very short amount of time. My FaceTime was really only like 4.5 minutes a day total. And so I would basically come in on a Monday at lunchtime, and since it was just myself, I could walk in and tape that over lunchtime, and I'd have the whole week done at one time.
Oh, okay. And that was was that a few years where you did that?
That one went through till 1999 when K-Meg started their newscast. They kind of decided to get out of kids and get into news, and so 99 was the last. May of 99 was the last of it.
And did they do the first newscast in the old location?
Yes, they did.
Oh, wow.
And that was part of it is, okay, there's no way you could have Puppin's Place stuff in there and everything else, and they had to build the news set, and it just wasn't space. It was just going a different direction at the station.
Okay. And then, of course, the question that I've always wondered, and I already think I know the answer with your music background, you wrote the Puppin's Place theme song, right?
I sure did.
I'm sure so many people still remember the words and the tune. I may have to, it's out there on YouTube on one of your episodes, right?
Oh, yeah, it's out there a lot, yeah. I actually, on YouTube, there's a Puppin's Christmas special. In Christmas of 1980, in the summertime anyway, I had come up with this idea for a half-hour Christmas special, and I pitched it to the general manager, and they thought, yeah, let's do it. And so I wrote all the music and everything for that, and that was scripted, and we shot that in a really short period of time with a budget of like $30, and we had a half-hour Christmas special, Puppin's Christmas special, and we syndicated it, and it went all over the country, and it was pretty fun. Even went to New York City. I still have somewhere I've got my rating thing from New York City. We were the #2 show on Christmas morning.
Wow. I'm trying to think of anything else. Was there anything else about the show that that I'm not asking that was of interesting note, or any stories that
Well, I don't know if it's interesting, but since we taped at night there, and came to a small studio, they used to do a news break at 8 o'clock every night. It was just a 1 minute little news thing. They used to read the AP wire and just give a 10-second weather thing. It was just their little news thing way back then. Well, because we were using the same studio, we basically had to shut down. Newsman would run out, get on his little set there, and do his minute-and-a-half thing, and then turn around and leave again. So the director had to physically punch away off on the switcher away from the studio to put it live, to get it over the air. And 9 times out of 10, he would forget the live button to close that off again and start coming back to start taping Puppin's Place. And Dale and I would be standing on the set smiling, and we'd be in prime time CBS just waving to people out there on the thing. Because, there's nothing we could do, but we just made sure that we were always not doing anything we weren't supposed to do. But I was on prime time a lot that way because they kept missing it.
nowadays they call that an incident or something, don't they? Whenever
Yeah. But it happened a lot. It was just a fun time because, it was back in the days where you could try just about anything. When I left K-Meg to go to Des Moines, and then when I came back and got the kids club, they handed me a book that had to be 3 inches thick, which was all the new rules for children's television.
Wow.
And it was, you can't do this, you can't do that. On Puppin's Place, I used to be able to go to places like Thinker Toys and borrow toys to show, hey kids, look at this, and hey, thanks our good friends at Thinker Toys for letting us use this. I couldn't do that anymore. I could no longer. It was called host selling. You couldn't say any business name. Couldn't do any of that stuff.
Wow.
And to me, that really helped kill a lot of shows because how are you going to get any sponsors? They can't say anything about you.
Yeah.
We had a lot of mice run across the set while we were taping. That was always fun.
Yeah. Did you incorporate them as characters into the show?
Well, no. One of the ones that we did. I think there's a Halloween show out on YouTube. What would happen occasionally is one of our hands would get up over the top of the bench because we'd be grabbing for something, and it would show up on camera, and you'd see this bare hand. And we didn't, we were trying to make it look as live as possible, so we never went back and retaped anything unless it was absolutely awful. So when the hand showed up over there, we suddenly came up with a name for them. We called them the S. Kelso Hand Puppets. And S. Kelso, Scott Kelsey was the engineer on our show. We was good friends, so we named him the S. Kelso Hand Puppets. And they just became a joke. Rufus would talk about trying to trap S. Kelso hand puppets. And I would ask him, how do you trap one? And he says, well, you leave out little jars of Jergens lotion, hand lotion. So when they come up to get some hand lotion, then you grab them. And so they were just being silly. So on our Halloween show, we just actually went up with just hands and did a song. So the hands are just singing a song. They were our S. Kelso hand puppets. And I can't tell you how many kids used to come up and say, look, it's the S. Kelso hand puppets.
That's funny. Overall, I wanted to also ask a few questions just about your experience with other TV people throughout the years. Obviously, I talked to Fritz Miller earlier tonight, and he had a lot of good memories to share over the years. You and he did you work closely in any capacity at K-Meg with him?
Yeah, actually, he grew up watching Puppin's Place too. And then when he was kind of the first producer of the kids club, and so that's really where I started to get to know Fritz and start to work with him. So he would be on set most of the time with it, getting things started. We traveled all over the place looking for a place that we wanted to shoot it at before we actually built the set. So we did a lot of fun times together. And then Years later, I came back to K-Meg back in the early 2000s, and Fritz was then the station manager out at K-Meg.
Yeah, I worked there
And,
running teleprompter for a short time. I think you had your own office down the hall when you were
oh,
doing creative stuff at that time, right?
right, I was doing kind of specialty things for them, and I was doing a show out there then called Your Home in Siouxland.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but yeah, that's when I was working with Fritz again in that capacity on there. But Fritz was always a good friend and a big supporter of Puppin's Place and of Kids Club. He actually recommended me for a position at. They were going to do a new show on public television. This is after he went to South Dakota. He heard about it and sent me all the information to send in my audition stuff, because this was after Mr. Rogers had died and they were getting ready to kind of do something else.
Mm-hmm.
So I sent in all my audition stuff and all the things to the PBS national stuff to see about it. They never did do the show. They decided to do something animated, but it was kind of nice to be invited to the dance after all those years.
Yeah, that's kind of fun. Did you? I gotta ask. The cookie club card was one of my favorite things as a young kid. Was that your idea, or was that a partnership with Hy-Vee to get a free cookie when you show up with your card?
Well, actually, that was a whole Kids Club idea from the start. Was members got the Kids Club card, and the sponsors would give them a gimmick to hook in with it. So you took advantage of the Hy-Vee cookie card there. We also you could get specials at what was it? Godfather's Pizza. You could get the small pizza thing, the kids' meal for $1. You could get the same thing at Subway. A whole bunch of them. That was kind of the cornerstone of the whole thing. You could get all that stuff through the Kids Club card.
Yeah, you get to the kids' hearts through their stomach.
And we used to have, well, you know, it brings you in. Hey, Mom, let's go, and bring my card and everything else.
Yeah.
At one time we had 30,000 card-carrying members.
Wow.
Yeah. The funniest part of that was we used to get, you know, you'd write in. All you had to do was write in and say, send me a card. And we'd get their name, address, and send it to them. But we would get so many things from Vermilion and stuff like that. And they would be all college addresses. So you knew all these college guys were writing in trying to get their kids' club card. You know, we'd laugh. We'd send them, you know, we didn't put them on the list, but we'd send them a card. You want a card? Yeah, we'll give you one. You can't use it anywhere because you're not a kid. But we know you're watching, and that's kind of fun.
Can you tell me anything about? It was very early on in my viewing, in my years of viewing, because I was just a kid. But I remember vaguely the Canyon Kid coming on TV with all those badges on his vest. Can you tell me a little bit about Jim Henry?
Jim Henry was just an icon. He had just been around for so long doing it. The funny thing about Jim and myself doing the little bits that we did, first starting out with him, I just showed up on a Saturday with my friends and we just taped it. He wasn't even anywhere around because the producer had heard about us and they told Jim, you should get this puppet guy on. And Jim basically said, yeah, have him come in and tape some stuff and we'll see. Well, anyway, we started showing up on the stuff and people were liking it. So then he suddenly started liking us a little more.
Mm-hmm.
And then he invited me to come on, and so we could actually talk prior to one of the segments going on the air. Well, the funny thing is his entire set was built to his height, and he was very tiny. And I happened to be about 6'2", maybe 6'3", and I couldn't fit in his door. It would hit me about at shoulder level. And so in order for us to talk, I had to sit on his little bench out in front and kind of slouch down, and he would stand next to me, and that's how we would end up talking.
And was his necessarily, was it an all kids show? I'm trying to remember what his format was.
Yeah, his started out way back in the 50s. He started out, it was a typical kids show, bring all the kids on, you know, and it was live. Kids would bring their pets. It was just kind of a free-for-all type thing, like everything you've seen in the 1950s. That's what his show was built on. And little by little, it went into more of a taped show like what we were doing. And at the time we were doing this, he had gone down to just Saturdays. He was on one day a week. But his was kind of the same, hosting cartoons and stuff, but it was just kind of that legacy of of doing it for so many years, parents would, show the kids this, and it was cartoons. You could watch cartoons and hear fun stuff about the community.
Oh, okay. Did you have any other people in the broadcasting community that you got to work with or that you spent time with that you were especially impressed by or admired?
Well, kind of admired all of them. I mean, we were kind of it was a lot more fun back in those days because we used to have, we used to do a thing called the gridiron, which was all the TV stations would get together with their talent and stuff this way, and we'd put on kind of a dinner skit thing and kind of spoof city people. It was just kind of a whole toast night of all kinds of things. And little by little, the competition for dollars and everything else just kind of splits you every direction. You just, Channel 4 people are over there, Channel 14 people are over here. They just kind of don't mix. Mm-hmm. And I always thought that was kind of sad. Same thing, we used to have so much fun at the Addy Awards, and I don't even know if they still have them. It's just, everything has changed so much to, instead of being camaraderie, it's all competition.
Yeah. I was talking to Fritz earlier, and he thought a big part of the change in television news is because of the number of companies buying up other companies, and there's very few broadcasting companies. They're all big entities now. Is that your opinion too?
Yeah, I think that's very true. I think one of the difficulties they have in like Sioux City is when I started in '79, Sioux City was the smallest market in the United States to have 3 network affiliates. Mm-hmm. You don't think about that, but we're only a little community of 100,000 people, and we had 3 television networks. Des Moines didn't even have 3. Actually, the ABC was in Ames. So selling your advertising, in Sioux City, you had to sell them so cheap because you just have so much competition. When I went to work at the agency in Des Moines, I could buy television time in Sioux City much cheaper than I could buy radio time in Des Moines.
Wow.
Just because of the competition. Well, when you're going that cheap, how can you afford to pay anything? Puppin's Place, you talk about dirt cheap. I think we started doing the show, I think it was $25 a show.
Wow.
So it was like $125 a week. I made no money at that, not at all. The thing that I made money on was I could go out and do puppet shows for corporations, for all this other stuff, and because of my notoriety, so to speak, I could charge them all kinds of money. Christmas time, I'd make a ton of money because I'd go from corporate Christmas show to corporate Christmas show and, make $1,500 in an afternoon.
Yeah, interesting. So it wasn't necessarily the pay from the TV.
No,
it was
no.
Everything else. It's like all the sports guys who do the endorsements after the game.
Yep. And when you think about it, it was a part-time job. It took us 1 day a week to do it, and I got paid more when we started doing kids club and stuff that way. But it took me 45 minutes once a week, and I got paid a couple $100 a week for that. I mean, That's where it was. Well, what a part-time job! Everybody would kill for that. Mm-hmm. But as a real career, no, you couldn't make a living at it.
So these days you're still you're doing advertising for Long Lines, and anything else happening on the side? You still doing any shows for children in Haiti?
When I travel to Haiti, I always take Rufus along with me because they never get to see anything like that. I don't do full-blown shows, but we'll come up there and sing and do all kinds of stuff. I've learned to sing and do some stuff in Creole, so I can sing it in their own language and stuff. And they just have a real hoot with that because they don't get to see anything like that.
Yeah, that's great. And you've been doing that for how many years? Hold on, my audio just dropped out 1 second here.
No.
Technology. It's great, huh?
Oh, it's kind of amazing. It's amazing what we can do. Like even being able to do this is unbelievable,
Yeah, so that leads me to a question about, computers and everything that's happened in the last 15 or 20 years. Do you like now, or do you like it before, as far as the creativity and everything?
Well, the thing about it is, in the past, you really had to be kind of ingenious with what you did because you didn't have a lot of tools. How do you make this work? My example is if you watch that Christmas special and you see the words at the opening, and you'll see Puppin's Christmas special with Tim Poppen and stuff, and it's kind of curly Q words and stuff. To do that today is just a computerized character generator. Anybody can do it. You can do it in Word. You can do it like anything else. Back then, we had to put those words on, they were rubbed down letters on a black card and had to be shot with a camera, and you had to move the camera to make it happen. So you had to figure all that stuff out, how to make that happen, rather than, okay, I'm just going to use this program, type it in. The advantage today is the power I have in my laptop is greater than anything that was even available for us to even use for production. For example, we came up with an idea of taking some video and kind of turning it into a star and then rotating it out. Well, there was a machine in Chicago that cost $500,000 and would cost us, $250 an hour to produce that on, and it would take like 8 hours or something like that. Mm-hmm. Well, we couldn't do it. Today, I've got it on my laptop. It's a piece of cake. It's just a wipe.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing when you consider all the things that have changed with computers.
Yeah, so there is a lot of advantages to what it is here, but again, now anybody and their brother can do this. So the value of it is not very big. So, why are they going to pay me a decent salary to do that when everybody who has a good Mac with a good program can knock this stuff out the same as I can?
Yeah. Do you have future plans or aspirations? Or are you planning on eventually doing a retirement? Or are you always going to stay busy?
Oh, I think I'll always stay busy, just because, I like creating things. What's fun for me now is having these computers and being able to do this. I'm behind the scenes, so nobody has any idea how old I am. Well, I produce a lot of videos for churches. There's a website called sermonspice.com, and these are all 1 minute, 2 minute videos that churches use to introduce sermons, to introduce worship sets, all kinds of things like that. And they're pretty modern, upbeat, good graphics and stuff this way. And everybody tends to think, oh, that's got to be some real young guy just out of college doing all that stuff with the fancy graphics. Mm-hmm. Well, no, it's not. I do a lot of them, and they're sold all over the United States, all over the world. And so I can do all this stuff and still be productive and still have, and nobody knows. And I kind of like that now. Yeah. I did my time in front of the camera. Now it's kind of fun to be the behind the camera guy. Yeah,
and you can do it from your own house in your own room or office.
That's absolutely right.
That's great.
I do a lot of videos for Haiti, for the hospital that's down there. I do a lot of promotion stuff for them and help them out with brochures and other things that way. So I keep plenty busy.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, I think that's about most of what I had for you. So once again,
now can you see? Can you see? There he is.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, he looks good. He doesn't look a day under 30.
Well, Rufus, there's been many of them just because you have to rebuild them.
Yeah, there's a lot of Rufuses.
Yeah, there's been several of them just because they wear out from all the stuff. But
yeah. Well, thanks again for your time, and thanks for talking to me on short notice. I definitely have always been interested in what you did over the years, and I think a lot of other people are too.
Hope you got something that's worthwhile.
Yeah, well, I can always auto-tune it if there's any,
Absolutely.
I can embellish it and make it sound good, if your voice went out of pitch or anything like that.
Hey, that works for me.
Tim, it's been awesome talking to you.
Nice talking to you, too.
Yep, have a good rest of your week.
I'll give it a try.
Catch you later.
See ya.
Puppin's Place, the only show in town that puts a smile on your face. We've got songs, we've got games, we've got many things to do. The only thing we need is a visit from you. Oh, Puppin's Place, Puppin's Place. So whether it is winter, spring, or fall, when you've got nothing to do, you're always welcome to come and visit Puppin.